What's going on, guys? Going through doing my last kind of checkups on the fish room. In here I have some of my bristlenose Plecos breeding, and they must have kicked them out of the flower pot or they bred under the moss, the acrylic yarn. But I have some eggs here, so I'm going to net these out, tumble them until they hatch. So that's what I'll do whenever you get bristlenose Plecos and you find the eggs out in the tank. You want to net those guys out because they're not going to guard them here. They're kind of abandoned. They sit there overnight. Some of the other fish will probably feed on them. So I need to go ahead and catch those out. But these are my spotted blue-eyed leucistic Plecos. So you can see his female hanging out top. She's got that big black spot on her back. And these are blue-eyeds. So some of them have more spotting than others. Some are siblings, so I know they carry similar genetics. But I've been really excited to breed these guys ever since I found them. So they're probably 6 to 9 months old. I know it's kind of a big window, but they're in that frame there, and I probably have 8 of them in here. This big male's been hanging out in the cave, so I don't know if he bred with them or it was a younger male that's kind of more submissive and not claiming a flower pot. But I'm going to go ahead and net these guys out, put them in a little tumbler, and I'll show you how to do that. Small spawn, so I don't know if they already start eating some or if it's just their first time breeding. So go ahead and net those guys out, try to get all the fish waste out of there, make sure I don't get any snails because they're gonna feed on those eggs. But go ahead, drop that in a container. Gonna go add a few drops of methylene blue, just enough to slightly get the water, that blue color. I usually do about 2 drops, and then I'll rinse it out inside here. And all it's gonna do is help with fungusing. Not really gonna help eggs from not fungus, but if there's 1 or 2 that do fungus, it'll help not affect the entire batch. For Plecos, it's not as much necessary versus my rams and angels. And I'll kind of take the air stone and just tumble these guys just real quick to get any waste off them, and I can take a turkey baster through here and get off any clumps. But those guys will hang tight for probably 2 or 3 days, and they'll start actually to hatch outside that egg. So real quick update, I went through and I just saw these. I was feeding some wafers, I got kind of excited, so really quick update. Hope you guys enjoyed, and definitely stay tuned for part 2. It won't be out for another few days, maybe next week or so. As long as they all do well. But this is really cool. This is my first breeding of the first generation of the blue-eyed leucistic spot bristlenose Plecos. So that's a real quick update on them. While I have you guys, I'll show you some of my other Plecos that are in the fish room and do a couple feedings. Just because I was already doing it, I just saw that, so I want to kind of capture that in footage. I don't even know what I'm going to call this video or if I'm even going to post it, but oh well, we're in the fish room. I want to update you guys. Let's look at a few other Plecos while I'm going through and feeding. Just feeding some of the algae wafers I buy on Amazon. I'll post them in the link. I get 5 pounds at a time. It's around 40 bucks, and it'll last me around 2 or 3 months. And they're just an algae wafer, like spirulina and stuff like that. I believe it has some some driftwood in it, and that's all I really feed my Plecos. So this tank here is pretty cool. I have some long fins, some albinos, there's even a couple calicos. Only like 5% are reds or calicos, so there's one right there. But mostly long fin commons, because that's what the parents were, but they do throw some other stuff. And if I don't drop all the algae wafers on the ground, I'll throw a few in there. Try to spread them out if you can. Down here is where I pulled the fry from. So you can see some of the parents here. They'll get some wafers as well. I started upping the food a lot in this tank. That's a little overkill. But if they just bred, there's definitely some hungry parents in there. So once I started upping the food, they started breeding for me, which is pretty cool. And it looks like there might be eggs there too, so hidden under that. I'll have to go underneath and net that out. Maybe 2 different females bred, or the eggs got separated. But the snails will start feeding those, so I'll have to get that out too. Good thing I went back and kind of double checked. This tank here, similar to the tank above, the first one I showed. Some common long fins, different things. I don't think I got any calicos out of here, but these parents are long fin commons and some standards. I think that since the female standard, they're not throwing any of those reds. When I go long fin to long fin, I've been getting some reds and calicos, but these guys will eat a lot too. So growing them out a little bit, I will need to move the pair to a new tank and just grow out the babies. This is one of those tanks I added this just $1 plant from the dollar store, and these guys bred last week, so you can see some new baby plecos and then the older generation, and there in here are some red guppies. There's one of the females, just a standard common, but the males are super red. So there's my pleco cave and the males right there. These guys will get some wafers also. Definitely important to spread them out. I try not to throw them where the plants are because they won't get to the bottom and they usually won't go down and find that food. So try to find spots at the tank where it's gravel or bare bottom. That's where we want to try and drop those wafers, because stuff like this, they won't get to that usually right away. This tank I'm keeping a lot of my grow out long fin commons. So this is like the F2 or F3 generation of these guys, and they're starting to get pretty big. They were tiny when I put them in here, but I think I'm gonna stop housing my plecos with my germ blue rams. They kind of get the water too dirty too fast, and I think it hasn't really affected the rams much. But I've been cutting back on feeding. Like right now, I normally do 2 wafers and break them up for all these plecos, maybe 3. But this water clouds just really quick, so I think I'm gonna stop housing them with any of my rams, or even when I have too many guppies in the tank. But if I have only a pair of plecos, they're fine. But once they breed, or if there's no plants or yarn in there, and it's just sponge filter bare bottom, the tank gets just way too dirty too quick. So that's something I need to switch up in the next week or so. But as for now, I'll show you those guys while I'm feeding. This tank here is pretty much all orange shrimp, but I do have one super red pleco in here. So I'll feed the shrimp and the plecos, that one pleco. I like to spread out one pleco kind of randomly. It's actually right here. And it really helps them grow a lot faster, and kind of helps move my fish around and kind of secure that I'm going to have enough grow out to adulthood where I can breed my next generation. So these guys will get some wafers. He'll go over and find that, but I'll toss one here for him too. A little bit extra food tonight, but not a problem. They'll eat it overnight, and anything that's still there in the morning, I won't feed in the morning. I'll just feed a whole lot less. These guys are still doing awesome. I have some of my long fin super reds in here, and I only have maybe 5 or 10 of them in the whole fish room. So I keep having people email me about them for sale. The only thing I'm selling now are my standard fin super reds, because I probably have a couple dozen of those. But things like my calicos, I'll sell a couple of them, but online probably not, at least till it's warmer. And any of the long fin super reds, I really don't have enough that I can sell them, because I'm not even breeding them true yet. So I'll hold on to those. This tank's always fun and enjoyable to look at. It's got a little bit of everything. I pulled them from a breeder tank. That super red's looking really nice tonight. Same with the one back there. We got those calicos. There's a lighter one to the right. To the left is just a standard fin. That one right there is a lot darker, but that's a calico as well. Same with this one here. A lot darker, but it's still got that red on its fin. So pretty cool tank here. Definitely enjoying it. This is a tank that it came from. You can spot a few more calicos, and there's a lot of adults in here, so they're usually a little bit more skittish because there's a lot more activity in there. But these guys will get a whole handful of wafers every morning and night, so they eat it all within a couple hours. It doesn't even take long for them to eat all that food. But I'll toss a bunch in there and usually spread it out across the tank. But that's really their kind of feeding corner. I have a lot more pleco tanks to kind of go around and show. I've been breeding them, and they're very slow growing, so it's nice to breed them, move a pair to another tank and breed them, or pull the flower pot and kind of allow them to regain some size and then breed a different pair in another tank, because I can kind of breed them whenever I want. Once I start feeding heavier and I give them the right male to female ratio and flower pots, those guys will breed within a few weeks, if not that day. So they're pretty easy for me to breed at this point because all my fish are used to the feeding schedule. They've been raised in my water and they're used to my water change schedule, so they're all pretty comfortable. Once they get the size, I can breed them, and it's just kind of spreading them out enough where I have babies everywhere, and they take 3 or 4 months to grow to sellable size, at least to the online and pet store. So that's why I have so many different tanks of babies, because it takes a long time for them to grow and there is some competition. But these guys in here, I'll show you in my last tank, because this wasn't even supposed to be a video, but I wanted to share with you me pulling out those eggs and what happens whenever you find eggs in the bottom of the tank. Do you leave them? Do you pull them? What do you do with them? So I figured I'd show you because I was excited about that tank breeding for the first time, and just a little bit of advice and just showing you guys some more plecos. But thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for the next video. Next video actually planned is going to be on my guppies and my breeding setups and all the fry, so the colors I have, all that good stuff. Thanks again for watching, guys. Please subscribe if you're not subscribed, and stay tuned for the next video.